Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk My Hero Academia, chapter 207. I just finished reading the chapter. I'm still digesting it in my mind. So very quickly before I get into the chapter, I just want to say a giant thanks to everyone that commented. There were a lot of great comments and a few funny comments. The ones that I kind of just want to go over really quickly, just some people like Vivo CA2 pointed out that there is a lot of destruction going on. And along that line, there were also people pointing out that they would like to see people getting scolded. And given that the reflections are still coming, we know that that's going to be a component here. We might get all the reflections at the same moment so that we can see in easy broad strokes what each class tended towards. In the previous comments, there were also a lot of comments just pretty much praising Pony, which, yeah, she totally deserves it. It was pretty cool to see that happening last chapter. Commenters also reminded me of what the quirk is supposed to be, a Tatami, or something like that. Or as we saw in this chapter in the Gemini's box translation, they translated it as tail cut or something along those lines. The kids here, I think, got slightly different translations than what we got in the what was it, the data book? But that's okay. It's overall the same meaning, or at least the same idea when it comes to the quirk names across the 1B kids. Other interesting comments involved people pointing out that there have been some pretty serious injuries, and it's not just Ojiro's tail, such as, you know, the head kick that Juzo got. Very true, very true. And the last set of comments was pretty much referring to me just taking it too far with the previous video, or just staying on one topic for too long. But come on, guys, like it's a fun time. It's just a manga. If you can't enjoy it, then what's the point, right? What's the point of being here and listening to someone else's opinions? It's a fun time. That said, those are the comments from last chapter. Let's get into this. And actually, one last set of comments was about shipping, because people were thinking that the Tokage Bakugo ship was going to start going here. But honestly, by the end of this chapter, it's the Bakugo Jiro ship. Like, we already have this kind of starting, or like being fed a little bit of flames back from the cultural festival, sort of. But now, like this panel, like this is shipper bait right here. Not only do you have Bakugo stepping on this girl's back, which I think is pretty funny, it's also nicely drawn. And you know how art factors into ships in general when it comes to the fandom. The better drawn an interaction is between two characters, the likelier it is that we're going to see the shipping really just ramp up. So I think, all things considered, and we're talking about the ship aspect because the interaction between Jiro and Bakugo here was relatively strong. You had Bakugo like calling her ears the whole time through the Gemini's box translation, and you have this final thing where he goes and saves her. That's definitely going to get people going. And if this fight pretty much ends with Bakugo calling Jiro by her name, you know that's going to get the shippers riled up. It's going to be, in some ways, the same reasoning that you see in the Ochako and Bakugo ship, that Bakugo respects her. So it'll be interesting to see where exactly the author decides to go with this one. But I'm talking about the final page of the chapter. I should be talking about what's in the title of this video. Yeah, man, you know, it was cool. What I saw with Tokage was not unexpected. I mean, okay, actually, when you look at the body parts, like, she's lopping off, how would I say, not easily distinguishable parts of her body. And that's pretty cool. I didn't expect it would go that far. I thought it would be like, very clear divisions in her body, right? Like, I thought it would be like her arm, her hand, her fingers, maybe, you know, wherever there's like a limb or a joint in the body, I pretty much thought that's where the separations would start. So it's actually kind of cool to see that she can rip off part of her face and have it just floating around. But unfortunately, you know, I see that power, and this is Buggy's power from One Piece, and it's just, I can't help but see that connection there. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's actually that, along with Tokage not really showing up to, well, actually she was there the whole time, but not really showing up in full form. I'm kind of powered down from it. I'm not really into it. That said, this is a much more aggressive implementation of Buggy's power, and I do like what the Hero Academia author has done with it. I'm not sure if this is a power that is suitable for a recommended student given what we've seen before, but you can definitely say that there is quite a bit of processing power going into the fact that this girl can control so many parts of her body at once. But the nail in the coffin for me is really, Bakugo pointed it out, like this power isn't really powerful, it's annoying. Mind you, it seemed to have been able to keep Bakugo suspended mid-air roughly, and it is cool visually to see all these little pieces of scale just going around and hitting him. But I don't think I'm not super impressed yet. I'm not super impressed, but I think that could change with the upcoming chapters. Now, as we're going more into the logic of the battle that's unfolding in this chapter, how do I vocalize this? We have a few separate trains of thought going on, it seems. We have the battle as according to how Tokage is sort of predicting it will go. And then we have how the peons kind of would do the battle if they're not listening to Bakugo. And then we have how Bakugo's doing things. And the reason I make a distinction between Bakugo and the peons, or whatever else Bakugo is calling them, is that once he's not giving them commands, they start behaving in a way that lets them fall into Tokage's plan a little bit easier. And mind you, I do think that Bakugo also kind of falls for their trap, sort of. But the thing that we have here going on, aside from those two tracks, when it comes to Bakugo's, we see that he has the narrative on his side, and specifically we're looking at the narrative of him learning from what All Might's told him. This whole idea of win by saving. Wait, were those the exact words? There we go, win and save. So like in the metaphorical sense, this desire to be better coming from Bakugo is effectively throwing a wrench into the works, right? This thing that's going on in Bakugo, this desire to live up to All Might's expectations, it's effectively a confounding variable. It's something that ultimately I don't think Tokage's group is going to be able to properly account for. And this kind of leads into just Bakugo's nature as a competent character. At the end of it, we see that Bakugo is able to, well, first blast away some of the trap that the Class 1B kids were setting up for Class 1A, and then he's also able to somehow boost himself back to where Jiro is, right? It just reminds you that Bakugo is this ball of just ability and skill. And if he puts his mind to it, it's going to be very dangerous. In a lot of ways, his explosion quirk, you know, it's rather limited, but the kid makes excellent use of it. So, I think for Bakugo's battle here, it's going to I think it's going to revolve around whether or not Bakugo by himself is competent enough to single-handedly thwart their plans, and then it's probably also going to require Bakugo being willing to use his pawns in a bit of a friendlier way, or use their ideas in a bit of a friendlier way. Right now, after seeing what Bakugo did in this particular chapter, I'm of the opinion that of the characters in Class 1A, Bakugo's the most likely to be able to just brute force win this by himself. He's the most likely to get angry, and that anger will take him miles. So I'm ultimately just wondering if this battle is going to be one where we're going to see Bakugo's natural born genius-like capabilities and his desire to live up to All Might's philosophy. If we're going to see that win him the day, or if this is going to be a learning lesson for Bakugo. If we want to go for a suspenseful Class 1A versus Class 1B type thing, however, when you look at the beginning of the chapter, there might be a little bit of a setup going on with that when you look at what Vlad is saying. He's already questioning whether or not Class 1A is capable to beat Class 1B without Shinso, right? And just from looking at that and imagining the narrative, it seems like what they're trying to say is that given that there is one win, one loss, and one draw, and that they're questioning equality, I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Bakugo loses or gets a draw. Although I feel getting another draw would be... I feel that would be a bit too cheap. I guess what I'm ultimately wondering is, I'm wondering if the author is trying to get class 1A and 1B to be more or less equal. And they could do that if they make Bakugo lose, or sorry, the author makes Bakugo lose and makes Izuku's team win. Because then in that case, you would end up with 2 losses, 2 victories, and the draw. And then you can make the argument that class 1A and class 1B are equal. I think that's unnecessary. I don't think we should be pushing this kind of equality idea between the 2 classes. I think it's okay if you just say that class 1A has more victories than class 1B. I think that would be totally fair. So you guys, let me know, like, right now, if you had to make a prediction, how do you think this is gonna turn out? Like, what do you think the author wants to push with this battle between class 1A and class 1B? Honestly though, Bakugo is one of those people I could see totally upsetting the balance and really pissing off class 1B just by just sheer ability. I feel like stubbornness, ability, and anger. 3 things that are really just terrible for anyone having to face it. Anyway, also in that first little bit, we had Aizawa commenting that he might not be as good a teacher as Vlad. But I like that because that's the start of the reflection, because he's already asking the kids if they can afford to make a mistake twice. So I think for those who are waiting for some kind of reprimand, I think it's gonna happen. Aizawa's there, he's gonna rain on everyone's parade. So I think we can look forward to that. And if we consider that the possibility of this whole thing ending in an overall draw, I could imagine the author giving class 1A accolades like the teachers telling class 1A that they caused less destruction and were more responsible in general, while class 1B was reckless. You know, the author can always spin a loss or a victory in whichever way he wants, if he wants to make sure the characters save face. Anyway, that's pretty much it for me. Those are the majority of the thoughts that I had for this chapter. Ultimately, I leave the chapter kind of apprehensive. I need to see the next 2 chapters. And a lot of it is ultimately revolving around Bakugo, because Bakugo as a character is a character who can fight convention or logic, right? Like we see him falling for an enemy trap, but it's hard to chastise him because he is the kind of character that can still win even if he falls into a trap. So it makes it kind of harder to criticize the kid because you never know if he knows what he's doing. One thing for sure though is I do wish he was nicer to his allies. But that save that he did for Jiro at the last moment, I think is a good improvement. It's a good step in the right direction. Anyway, you all, let me know what you thought down below, and let me know what you thought of this chapter. Especially if you have any real concerns. One thing that I've been enjoying in your guys' comments is that a lot of you are pointing out what you think are the flaws with any of that battles and what you think are the good parts of the battles. And it's really cool to read your opinions. So go for it. Write out those comments because I will read them at least before the next video. Anyway, till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.